Hey, welcome ladies and gentlemen. Charles E. Smith Jr. here alongside Jake Stevens. This is an Inside Sports production. Welcome to From the Arena.
It's good to be in the arena. It's a little chilly, but it's good to be in the arena.
Chilly in the arena. Now, of course, we're in Staples Center in downtown Los Angeles. The coming home for Ryan Smith, who spent a couple of seasons here with the Kings. He went back to Edmonton. He's playing for the Oilers. They came in. Edmonton is red hot. They got a lot of youngsters on the squad. They came in having won 5 straight. The Kings came in having lost 2 in a row, hoping to reverse things. It was a 3-0 win for the Oilers. The result, Kings now have a 3-game losing streak. Oilers win streak, now at 6 games.
Yeah, and when you want to talk about what they've done with Edmonton, really, 2 things have helped solidify them, Charles. One is that Nikolai Khabibulin, coming off, frankly, a tumultuous summer, went to jail for a bit, and then wasn't the starter.
Sounds like my summer.
Devan Dubnyk was the starter, and then Khabibulin has come in, and all he's done is be the best goaltender in the NHL. I mean, he has been phenomenal. His save percentage is ridiculous. His goals against against average is microscopic. He's been phenomenal. And as you mentioned, Ryan Smith comes back. There were some boos. There were some fans who were upset that he wanted to leave.
Right.
I mean, it's not like this guy was a superstar who demanded out. This is just a guy who said, for my family, I like living in Edmonton. That's where I want to be. That's what he wanted to do. And then wouldn't you know it, he pots the first one on a bizarre play where he banked it in off of Jonathan Quick's head.
Right, and it was a strange game because there wasn't a whole lot of shots on goal.
No.
In fact, midway through the second period, the shots on goal total was 11-6. So the Kings were getting outshot by a 2-1 margin. Yet the Oilers' shot total was pretty pathetic. Anyways.
Yeah. It was a game where both teams kind of looked like they weren't really sure which direction they were going, especially in the first period. I jokingly said that the Oilers controlled the period. They got 3 penalties, managed to draw 3 penalties against the Kings, and then their own power play unit killed off those power play opportunities with just dreadful passing and nonchalant play, and they really just didn't look very good. But in the second period, the Kings didn't seem to come out with the same effort. Although that's a point of contention we'll come back to a little bit later. But it seemed like a couple of weird bounces. It turned the game with Smith's goal that went off of Jonathan Quick's head. And then things seemed to just kind of open up for the Oilers. They seemed to gain some confidence. And that's what happens with a young team. A bunch of young guys. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, a young guy who's really played well. And some of their other youngsters, Taylor Hall. And these guys who, they're just really getting a good taste of it. When things go your way, you get energized, especially as a youngster. It's harder to not get that flush of energy, and it's also harder to just let things go when you're a youngster. When you're a veteran, it's easier to say, a goal was scored, no big deal, whether it's for you or against you. When you're a youngster, though, and it doesn't go your way, it's real easy to get down and get a little bit upset about things, but they didn't do that, and obviously, when things didn't go their way with the power plays in the first period, they were okay, and when they got that first goal, when Smith scored that first goal, that whole Edmonton team just seemed to perk up. Now more shots were coming for their team, and they seemed to really control play in that second period.
Right, and that's one thing where, the Kings can talk about, what they did or didn't do, or did Edmonton get any lucky bounces. Bottom line is, when you score 0, you don't win a whole lot of games. I've researched this. Yeah, scoring 0 is not a path to winning games.
That seems bad.
Yeah.
That seems bad. Now, of course, as we mentioned, it was Ryan Smith's homecoming. We did get a chance to catch up with him in the locker room afterwards. He obviously was happy that he got his family situation settled. You can tell he certainly wasn't bothered. I'm sure he heard and he noticed a little bit. Again,
Right.
it wasn't a loud serenade of boo birds. People tried to keep it up, but really,
It was like a golf boo.
yeah.
Is there such a thing as a golf boo? Yeah. It was just seemingly, okay, we have to boo this guy. We don't really care that he left, but dutifully we shall boo him. Boo Ryan Smith, boo, boo.
Yeah. But as it turns out, obviously, he got the last laugh. And coming just after Halloween, I guess you could say, they brought the boos, but he got the cheers for himself from his team because of coming through that way. And you could tell he didn't want to make it about himself because the veterans never do. But you know that he was thrilled to have gotten that first goal against his former team, just because anytime that you've been someplace and you go somewhere else, you want to do well against them. You always want to do well against your former team.
Well, you know what? I love your analysis, dude. I do.
I appreciate
that. The people out there love your analysis. But I think they would love to hear directly from Ryan Smith about this, and then from what's that dynamic youngster?
Yeah, Ryan Nugent Hopkins, who they weren't even sure how many games they were going to play, and then there was this big debate: do we keep him after the 9 games? Do we keep him because then we have to keep him and he gets the time put in for service, etc. Are they crazy? This kid's played so well. There was no doubt they were keeping him up. He had a hat trick in his 5th game. Yeah, this kid's around to stay.
So I'll tell you what we're going to do is go to some interviews. In just a moment here, we will have Ryan Smith and we will have the youngster. What's his name again? This is a whole team of no names.
They're all named Ryan, and he just happened to be Nugent Hopkins.
Right, all right. No relation to Ted or...
No.
But I tell you, you could tell too, and when we spoke to the youngster Nugent Hopkins, he was excited, and he certainly had much to say for his elder statesman who, it's kind of funny, 93, 94, those are the numbers, but you don't necessarily sit number to number in a locker room. But I think specifically they want this kid sitting next to Ryan Smith and soaking up as much professionalism, as much that he can learn from the veteran as he possibly can. And, of course, Ryan Smith, as I said, always the veteran, always the elder statesman, always the smart man who understands how it goes, who understands what you need to do when you are talking.
Shut the door for us, and obviously got himself a shutout, but more or less that we, right from the outset, I thought we did the little things right that made a difference.
It's always nice to get the first one knowing yourself, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I had a short time here. Obviously, it was all right, nothing wrong with it. I just felt it was the best for my family, and moving on. And it's always nice to win.
Your last 2 years with the Kings, Edmonton had the worst record in the league, both
offensively, and I think some games our goalies have had to stand on their heads and really battle for us, and I think that's huge that we can have games like that where the goalies really bail us out, and other games where we were playing really good defensively and offensively.
Everybody knew there was a lot of talent on this team, a lot of young kids, but there weren't a whole lot of expectations. Or did you guys have expectations for yourselves in this round?
I think we definitely did. I think coming into this season, I think the team definitely wanted to regroup from the last couple seasons and definitely make some strides, and so far we've definitely done that.
It's been a heck of a start for a nice winning streak and taking down some pretty powerful teams.
Yeah, it feels good right now. I think we have some confidence going to the next few games on this road trip, so we're going to try to use this game as momentum and just keep playing.
How does it feel knowing that now you're going to be here all the time?
It's definitely a great feeling. I think hearing it from our Steve Tambellini and Tom Rennie, it was really nice to hear, and it definitely made me feel a little bit better.
What have guys like Ryan Smith done for you? How much do they talk to you?
A lot. I think right when I came here, Ryan Smith he had me over for dinner a couple times. He talked to me a lot, and really made me feel comfortable coming in here.
So, as you heard from both of them, obviously Nugent Hopkins soaking up the information, anything he can get from Ryan Smith. Ryan Smith, as you said, take him out to dinner a couple of times, Charles, and really kind of trying to show this kid the ropes. But on the ice, he's not a kid that you have to show the ropes. I watched him. This is something you and I were talking about during the game. He's got great hands. When you talk about a hockey player, his hands, he's so quick with the puck on his stick. He can move it. He's quick with his skating, with his cuts. It's not big and loopy. It's very precise, very short. His hands, he is the kind of guy that you expect will really blossom into a phenomenal goal scorer because his hands are so good and he controls the puck so well.
Yeah, you just hope that he keeps it up and really keeps his nose to the grindstone, because as he starts to not become much of a secret in the NHL, that's when you separate the good players from the great players. And we'll have to see what happens with this Oilers squad, but they're night and day from last season. And that's the thing with young guys is, one thing is they got a lot of energy. So even when they're not scoring, they can say that energy. It's just that energy of a young team that they have. Right now it's being channeled well, but we saw the same type of a thing, though, with Colorado a couple of years ago. They had Matt Duchene, they had all these other guys with Paul Stastny, John Michael Lyles. All these guys were just young and great, and they made a playoff push. The next season, last season, it was horrible for them. So you never know the ups and downs of the way that these young teams go.
Yeah, and that's why it's so important to have some of those veteran presences. And that's why a guy like Ryan Smith is so helpful for them. And then on the back line, in goal for Hobby Bullen to be playing well, and a guy who's been through it, a guy who's played at the elite level in the NHL, and for him to
Stanley Cup,
right, and for him to be
Cup
playing
with Tampa Bay,
for him to be playing so well this season, and it's hard to say, he's back and it's going to last that way because nobody can play like this for a full season. I mean, his goals against average, I believe, after tonight is under 1, and his save percentage is something like .970. I mean, it's out of this world.
Those were like Quick's numbers for the first 6 games.
Right. When he had those 3 straight those shutouts and he had that phenomenal. But it's one of those things where those guys will certainly help. Now, you talk about some other guys out there too, some role players that they have, guys that they all seem to be meshing, they all seem to be working together and doing a nice job. Their defense, to me, is going to be that weak link. I watched them tonight. They turned the puck over a ton of times.
Right.
And that is something that eventually catches up with you. When your goaltender doesn't make every single save, and suddenly a couple of goals go in because you make just catastrophic defensive mistakes, and they made a lot of mistakes. The score sheet doesn't, and I was taking a look at this, and I was taking a look at the number of giveaways, and it only said 14 on the sheet, but I'm telling you, there were so many times where they were a touch from danger, from the puck being in the back of the net.
And that's the things you get with young teams, you get the high wire act.
Yes.
That's what it is. They're fun to watch, and I'm sure right now the coaches, he's having fun, but there's going to be times when he really has to earn it. That's just the way it goes.
Now, on the other side of it, you talk about youngsters. Did you notice Drew Doughty at all out there tonight? He's just come back from being out of the lineup for a bit. It's interesting. A couple of years ago, he was that kid that nobody could corral. He really played unbelievably well. Last year, to an extent, they solved him a little bit. Obviously, they played when he was hurt at the beginning of the year, and his style was sort of slowed down by his concussion for a bit.
Well,
and
his style was slowed down by putting on 15 pounds of excess fat and water weight in the offseason.
Well, that was a problem, too.
Yeah.
His conditioning was obviously not where it needed to be. Then you added the injury on top of it. And then also teams essentially identifying on the power play, if the puck goes back to the point, stay with him, as opposed to go and drift. They were always kind of leaning towards him. And now he's got to adapt again. I just didn't see any spark from him. I didn't see him making any rushes tonight. I didn't see any jump for Drew Doughty at all.
This game is flat.
Yes.
All around for the Kings.
Yes.
When I looked out there, they could have all changed jersey numbers, and there was nothing really that distinguished one player from another.
No.
Dustin Brown turns in his normal. He's always a gritty performance, but Mike Richards didn't do a whole lot
tonight.
Kopitar had a semi-breakaway, but other than that, it was just a really lackluster, just a flat game from the Kings.
Yeah, and again, you pointed out, and we talk about some of those top players. Those are the guys that need, when the rest of the team is kind of struggling, when there doesn't seem to be some spark, those guys have to make something happen. Kopitar tried, nothing really went on. It looked almost like Richards was deferring instead of, sometimes it looked like he had opportunities to take shots, and he was looking to set up his teammates so well instead of just saying, you know what, let me get it at the net and create some traffic.
That's sometimes what what winds up happening is when it's a game like that where things just aren't going right, and everybody says, well, I'll set up somebody else.
Right.
Because it's not my night. Everybody's thinking that.
Right. And unfortunately, it seemed like everybody had that sort of night tonight, is that it wasn't any of their nights. There wasn't one guy really on the team that you could point to and say, he had a really good night. And it wasn't that, by the other side of it, it wasn't like there was any of the players where you look and you go, well, they were all awful. It was just, they were just blah, for lack of a better, I don't know how else to describe it, is that there just was nothing. They were acceptable and nothing more, I guess.
Right, and it's one of those games where sometimes, it happens in every sport, sometimes you come out and it feels like you're just that far behind the play.
Yes.
You just can't seem to catch up and get into the action. That may have been that type of a game for the Kings, but they need to get this thing solved really quickly because things are not going to get any easier for them. The Pittsburgh Penguins come in here on Saturday night, then they take a trip up to San Jose on Monday night, and on the back-to-back, Nashville comes in, and you know what happens if you come out flat against Nashville. That's like skating against a swarm of gnats. They just keep on coming and keep on coming. So it's a really dangerous time here for the Kings, and you could see this 3-game losing streak turning into something where, when you're looking at, should so-and-so get replaced, should so-and-so be sent down, and they better get this thing righted really quickly. And one thing was, from what I understand, I guess Dustin Brown was not happy with some of the effort of his teammates.
Yeah,
Terry Murray said a little bit different, but fortunately for y'all, We have that in just a moment.
Yeah, it's interesting, and I know, Charles, you're going to get that tape ready here, but
I am.
it is interesting. And I'll say one thing.
Anyone out there do tech work? We could use one of those.
But that was the interesting, is that apparently Dustin Brown felt like there wasn't a good enough effort from his team. Mm-hmm. As you're going to see in a couple of seconds, when we spoke to Terry Murray, there's an exchange about that, and I don't want to preface it anymore, but let's just say that Terry was unhappy, but probably not for the reasons that you would expect. And I know as Charles gets that set up, I would just go through some of the, there were 17 turnovers for
bunch of hits. They had 33 hits on the night, so they played the body. These guys, they only had 19 shots, which obviously didn't help. They had some shots at the start of the game, and then it just kind of fell off. They had some opportunities, and they didn't cash anything. But for the most part, they didn't have a whole lot of great chances. But Terry Murray did not seem to be upset like maybe Dustin Brown was with the effort that he saw out there on the ice. Well, we'll have that for you in just a second.
To get pucks to the net. We used our defensemen very well, low to high, and a lot of pucks were directed towards the net, but they did block a lot. And I don't know what the total was on the blocks. I didn't look at it yet, but there was no problem with the attitude. And the second period is the period, obviously, that was a problem for us.
How much of that do you call uninspired out there?
None of it. Really? None.
It seemed like times they
None.
Okay.
Well, Dustin Brown was saying earlier that he found some problems with the team's effort tonight.
Did he? Well, I had a lot of, again, a couple of bad bounces out there. The game in Colorado, we had some bad luck. There was some bad bounces. I look at the first goal here tonight. It goes off Quick's head. This third goal is a pass that comes from our D and hits Kopitar in the back of the foot, and they go in and score on. So I look at that as bad bounces that go through a process over the course of the year, and that's what I chalk it up to right now.
How do you go about trying to create more scoring chances, especially in the last few games?
Well, we're talking about it all the time. We're practicing drills. We're shooting the puck. We got net presence. We're just not getting pucks through right now. I got to look at shot attempts. I don't know what that number was here tonight, but I thought the attempts in the early going in the third period, first and third period, were pretty good. Second period was a period where we didn't get much going.
Ironic, Ryan Smith ends up getting the first goal. That's
Terry Murray unhappy with the insistence, it seemed like, a reporter questioned that his team didn't show effort. And he snapped. You heard him. He snapped. He answered it the first time, and when it was asked again, he said no. And he was upset about it.
Right.
Which is interesting, because after a night like tonight, you wonder how the team reacts. You wonder how the coach is going to react. And on a night where you feel like, to our eyes, and to apparently Dustin Brown's eyes, it could have been a night where Terry kind of handed the team one through the media, but he didn't at all. And it's interesting when a coach takes a different sort of tactic than you would expect in that situation.
Well, let me ask you this. When it comes to Terry Murray and the Kings, how rough do you think practice is going to be tomorrow? Let's go ahead with that. If you went to practice, you would find out what he really thought of his team's effort tonight.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you. Terry Murray's been a straight shooter. For the most part, he tells you what he feels, how he's doing. he's pretty good too with the temperature checks on his team and understanding how to deal with the situations, when to get on them, when to leave them alone. I don't have reason to believe that he was unhappy with that. There may be a talk tomorrow. He may specifically talk to Dustin Brown and say, what did you see that maybe I felt that I didn't see? But I don't see him, hammering them in practice. I don't see it because I feel like Terry Murray did not seem upset with his team tonight.
This is the score sheet from
Yes.
tonight. Official, we've
Yes.
got plus minus, we've got turnovers and everything else here.
Yes.
All right. The Kings scored 0 goals.
Yes.
Yeah.
But just because you don't score doesn't mean...
They didn't get a lot of shots.
Right. They didn't get a lot of shots. They didn't get a lot of traffic in front. They didn't get a lot of opportunity. Here's what I will say, though. This, to me, sums up what went on tonight's game. The number one star of the game was Ladislav Smid. And I know that's a household name for everybody. Ladislav Smid is a defenseman for the Edmonton Oilers. He didn't score a goal. He didn't have an assist. What he did have was 5 block shots and 3 hits, and he was the number one star of the game. Number 2 was Ryan Jones, and number 3 was Nikolai Khabibulin, who had the shutout. That tells you something. When a defenseman who hasn't even hit the score sheet in terms of goals or assists, any sort of points, is the number one star. It tells you what type of game it was. And that's why I think Terry Murray just felt like it was one of those, it wasn't our night, things didn't connect, it didn't work out the way we needed it to, but I'm not going to kill them because there's no reason to kill them. I don't want to bury them. I want to pump them up for the next one. So I think it's a different tack.
Reinforcement?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's what he's looking for in this case.
All right, positive reinforcement. Shall we go over some of the scores of the other games here?
Yeah, take a quick whip around the league. Sure.
Sure. Okay, right here in Orange County, the Anaheim Ducks were in the New York. The New York Rangers win that one 2-1 in overtime.
In the shootout.
In a shootout, yes.
Lundqvist with a couple of nice stops. And a couple of the Rangers, let me tell you something. A couple of the Rangers, I was watching that earlier, they made Jonas Hiller look silly. And that can happen in a shootout to any good goaltender, no matter how well you play. A couple of the Rangers made Hiller look like he didn't know whether he was coming or
have
going.
a lot of individual talent on their team.
Yes,
the
and they are
problem
good
is when they
shootout
get together as a team and actually have to play the team game of hockey.
Yeah, they're better in shootouts.
That's where
they're better in shootouts than they are playing the actual game.
Exactly. That's because it's an individual effort.
Yes.
Sure, breakaway drill. We do those all the time. That was the most fun part of practice.
Yes.
Everybody loves a breakaway drill.
It helps that they get to shootouts. They win a lot of them.
Definitely. And that helps we have Lundqvist in the net, who is the hardest working goaltender in the league, playing with a team that quits in front of him 80% of his games. But you know, we're not talking about the Rangers. We'll go ahead and stay on point here. But we will stay in New York. New York Islanders, Winnipeg comes to town. The brand new Winnipeg Jets, they win 3-0 on the island.
Evander Kane, the youngster, is making his mark. He's the kid who they wondered when is he going to make the leap. He had a solid showing last year in the time he had. He's starting to put the puck in the net. He's a dynamic player. That's a guy to watch for, Evander Kane.
Right. While he was with Atlanta, I remember when he punched out Matt Cook of the Pittsburgh Penguins. I know all y'all have seen that photo. I won't even put it up.
And that made a lot of people happy.
And the Toronto Maple Leafs, they go into Columbus and pound the Blue Jackets 4-1. The Blue Jackets lost again.
Yeah, and I believe it's Ben Scrivens, the goaltender, with James Reimer still out. They gave Jonas Gustafsson a rest tonight. Scrivens, all he did was stop 38 shots. He was phenomenal tonight. Unbelievable. And Joffrey Lupul is having quite a couple of days. He had a hat trick the other night. I think he had a couple of assists tonight. And a couple of goals tonight for Clark MacArthur, which is one of my personal favorite names in hockey. I just love it. Clark MacArthur.
Joffrey Lupul's a good kid. I know when he was here in Anaheim playing for the Ducks. He's one of their original draft picks from back in 2003. He played for them in 2004. I remember interviewing him at the Young Stars game at the 2004 All-Star game, All-Star weekend in Minnesota.
He's blossoming. Nicely.
Definitely. Had a back injury last year with the Ducks, but good kid. New Jersey, one of the great rivalries. New Jersey beats Philadelphia again in the shootout, 4-3.
Yeah, that was one where New Jersey scored late. It looked like Philly was going to cash one in. Jersey scored late, and then they won the shootout. Interesting. Martin Brodeur got just absolutely buried last night. He did not look very good. And tonight, Hedberg in the nets and didn't play great, but he played well enough, and he played well enough in the shootout to get them to win.
Marty Brodeur still, all these years later, how old is he now?
He's 82.
Right, and he celebrates each season by putting on 3 pounds. All right, Calgary goes into Detroit. Calgary wins 4-1.
What is going on with the Detroit Red Wings? They can't put the puck in the net. That team is having serious problems scoring goals. And there was another one of those Jimmy Howard, oh, really? You just gave that one up type goals.
Well, one other problem with Detroit is what's their average age on that roster? Like 46?
They're a little older. They're a little long in the tooth. But still, there's a lot of guys on that team who can score, and they're not scoring at all. They are really having problems putting the puck in the net.
All right, moving on, Chicago. They go to Florida, beat the Florida Panthers 3-2. Another shootout. Seemed to be the order of the evening here.
Late goal for Florida to tie it in the third period, but then Chicago in the shootout getting it done. Especially,
I'd say they have some individual talent on the Chicago team.
Oh yeah, they've got
shootouts.
some guys. Jonathan Taves scored the first goal of the night. That's a team they're fun to watch. You still wonder how well they'll play defensively and with their goaltender when it comes to playoff time.
And Patrick Kane, though, the whirling dervish, the mouthpiece kind of hanging halfway out of his mouth as he just makes guys look silly. I love watching Patrick Kane. Love that kid. Vancouver Canucks going to Minnesota, get spanked 5-1. I didn't know that Minnesota was capable of scoring 5 goals in one game.
Neither were they. I think Vancouver pulled the goalie after the first period, and they got the shooter to empty net. Interesting. One of those games where Vancouver just played a really good game the other night, and then they came back and they were just flat as a pancake in Minnesota. No explanation for it, but it's a long season. Vancouver will be there, but what's interesting, and if you can look at the box score real quick, Charles, I believe that in goal tonight, I believe it was Roberto Luongo. And he had gotten off to a rough start. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was Corey Schneider tonight. It was Schneider who played tonight. Luongo had gotten off to a rough start. Schneider had played well. Then Luongo played well in his last couple starts, and Schneider gets shellacked tonight, though, frankly, it wasn't all his fault, as you saw. He saved 40 shots, which means, yeah, he gave up 5 goals, but he stopped 40 pucks, which means that they were not doing a whole lot in front of him to help him out.
Exactly, because, so they outshot shots on goal. Were 45-25.
Yeah. And that's a Vancouver team that thrives on offense.
And Vancouver scored the first goal.
Yeah.
And then gave up 5 unanswered, so I guess the ice kind of tilted after that.
Not so good for them.
All right, moving right along. Let's get down to the last few scores here. And Nashville goes into Phoenix, shuts out the Phoenix Coyotes 3-0. But if a tree falls in the forest and no one's around, doesn't make any noise. That's what you got to ask whenever you're looking at the Phoenix.
You know all I got to say? And I'm assuming he was in goal? Pekka Rinne. Just got the new big contract.
He did.
He's a beast. He is a beast. He is a fantastic. If he was playing in another market, lots more people. Obviously, hardcore hockey fans know him, but he's certainly not a national name. He's a terrific goaltender, and he's getting his money's worth, and they're getting their money's worth with the big contract for him.
Most definitely. And now what they've got to do is get Shea Weber somehow locked up long term, and they'll be good for a while. All right, Pittsburgh in San Jose. Must have been an exciting game. Another shootout. 4-3. The Sharks take down the Pittsburgh Penguins.
We can check on that one. I may be wrong, but I think the Penguins blew a 3-0 lead in that game. I think they led 3-0. No, they led 2-0 and 3-1. Right. And they gave up 2 in the third, including one with 5 minutes left. It's interesting. And Malkin actually had a couple of goals tonight for Pittsburgh. They desperately need to get him on track, but I don't know. That team, right now, they're up and down. You're waiting to see what happens. They're waiting to see when Crosby is going to get back into the lineup. A lot of ifs surrounding that team. If he comes back and plays well, then they're really going to be a dangerous team again. And if he doesn't, they're just going to kind of slog along in the middle of the pack.
Definitely. But Penguins, they'll be in here in Staples Center, where we are right now, broadcasting live on Ustream. They'll be here to play the Kings on Saturday. Now, Sidney Crosby will be making the trip with the team, though he will not suit up for any games yet. And, ironically, I saw the last 2 games Sidney Crosby played in. I was in Pittsburgh, I went to the Winter Classic, and then also went to watch them play Tampa Bay after that. And that was the last time he ever played, last time he was on the ice. So, I don't know, that's a long time to be out with a concussion.
Who plays first? And I ask this seriously, who plays first, Sidney Crosby or Peyton Manning? Who plays first?
Crosby. I just fear that I think he'll come back this year, but if it takes, on that hit, and he's out that long, if we got a Lindros situation on our hands, maybe?
It's interesting because it's really only the last couple of years that sports have really focused so much more on concussions. Who knows how many of those mini concussions that everybody gets from getting jostled, but when you really get your head jostled, it stirs things up. you mess up your balance. I mean, people talk about, oh, you know, headaches, but I mean, your balance, your equilibrium, all those things are thrown off. When you're an elite athlete and you're thrown off the slightest bit, that's a major, major issue. Hopefully he comes back, he's strong, he's healthy, and he comes back to be the dynamic player that he has been. Hopefully he gets rid of his porn mustache. But these are things that I hope for with Sidney Crosby, and obviously want these players to get well. The only one, as you know, that I don't want to get well is your buddy,
Chris Pronger.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
He has a mustache. I tried to grow a mustache like Sidney when I was in high school. I think I got the few sprigs growing out like that.
Adam Morrison looks at that and says, boy, that's a bad mustache. You know that's bad.
All right, well,
we've
got about a half hour. Let's go ahead and wrap everything up here. So,
wrap it up.
Yep. Thanks for joining us in this inaugural broadcast of From the Arena. We're here at Staples Center, where the Edmonton Oilers came in, beat the Kings 3-0. The Kings beat 3-0, 3-game losing streak. That's numerology there.
And they got 3 games coming in 4 nights, starting with the Penguins on Saturday. We'll see if they can get themselves healthy.
Penguins, San Jose, Nashville. That's
tough stretch.
Yeah.
But that's when you show that you're a good team. And that, frankly, this Kings team should be a good team. Let's see what happens after a day rest. They get the Penguins on Saturday night. We'll see what happens in that one. They've got to get going in the right direction. Last year, they lost a bunch of home games early on, and those things eventually cost you when you end up further down in the standings.
Yep.
And come on, we can't discount the fact that when Kopitar got hurt, they dropped like
well, you know
a rock.
what? Here's the
so
good
that was
thing,
different.
though,
But
is they got off to that hot start.
Right.
6-0-1 to start the season off, and now you see the things start to turn the other way. But that's why you need to, when you can win those games, you win them because that way you can get through the dark times like they're doing right now.
Right. You gotta bank them early, and you gotta bank your home wins early. You gotta bank those home wins early because you need those points later.
Definitely. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us here. This is an Inside Sports production of From the Arena. I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr. So for Mr. Jake Stevens, good night. Thanks for tuning in. And thanks a million to the Kings organization for making all of this possible. And we will see you all next time.